The problem with doing this channel and reviewing music in general, really, is that you oftentimes find yourself getting burnt out on things. You've created this, that, and the other, but now you need to move on to create more content and start digesting the next album to create more content again and again and again, ending up in an endless loop wherein it becomes difficult to take a step back and just breathe. Just enjoy the moment and revel in the impact of an album, allowing it to wash over you completely. And Abstract Illusion's third full-length album, The Sleeping City, has enabled me to step back, to absorb the effect of this music absolutely. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the finest albums of the 2020s so far across all genres. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, my name is Ian, this is Rhyme Signatures, and we are once again opening the lid on the best new releases in prog rock and metal. Right, I got on board with the band back in 2022 with the release of their sophomore album of Woe. Now, I'd only been doing the channel for a few months at this time, and I was still finding my feet, shall we say, and figuring out exactly what it was that I wanted to do with this channel. I was an unknown voice in the crowd, and an Abstract Illusion were an emerging talent, and getting the opportunity to talk about how much that record hit me was one of my absolute favourite moments of the early days of this channel. I consider Woe to be one of the best albums of the first half of this decade. It was that perfect blend of death metal and progressive metal with stabs and stings of black metal, and the entire experience was basically faultless. It became one of my most listened to albums ever. I was telling basically everyone I knew about this record. I listened to it on average about once a week for a year, but one thing was becoming very clear to me. I needed more. Of course, obviously I went back and I obsessed over their debut EP of Atonement is Nigh and their first LP of Illuminate the Path, and it became very clear to me very quickly that the band were a unique, rare talent in the primordial soup of 8 million progressive death metal bands that kept on cropping up. From day one, it was clear that they had established themselves with their own identity, managing to flawlessly skirt around the edges of their influences whilst crafting a monolith of their own sound, standing out loud and proud, and making it incredibly easy to get excited for anything that they were putting out. But Woe came out 3 years ago now, and we'd only been getting little brief nuggets and hints as to what the next chapter in their story was going to look like. Nothing much concrete was being given, but then like a bolt of lightning from the heavens, the first single from The Sleeping City dropped on YouTube, and it made something abundantly clear. An Abstract Illusion had not missed a beat, and were threatening to once again drop an obvious contender for Album of the Year. Now, I've been lucky enough to have access to this record for a few months now, and I've taken plenty of time to get extremely comfortable with The Sleeping City. Is this better than Woe? Now that depends on what you like and who you are, as this isn't just a sequel, it is a genuine progression of their sound, and I am completely obsessed with it. Okay, so often when we talk about progressive rock and metal, it's done so as a genre descriptor rather than an actuality of moving a band's sound forwards. If I say progressive rock to you, you've probably got a sound in your head as to what that means. You're probably thinking mellotrons, odd time signatures, multi-part suites and esoteric instrument choices all being thrown in with reckless abandon. But how often does the term and label actually mean what it says? Not really that often. Most neo-prog bands are, if anything, completely regressive, clutching to the sounds and styles of 50 years ago, rather than trying anything actually new. Now, what's happening on The Sleeping City may not be anything new for the genre as a whole, it is certainly encroaching on new territory for the band. When listening to their earlier records, you got a real sense of death metal with heavy black metal accenting, a familiar sense of rage and anger to the music and lyricism. But with this new record, we're taking a step in different directions, and we're introducing some fascinating electronica elements that make the album feel more like death metal Vangelis in places than anything else. There's a thick, grimy, almost cyberpunk aesthetic to a lot of the songs on here, The opening arpeggios of Black Murmur and the sinister atmospherics of Frostflower point to an album that owes more to the Blade Runner soundtrack than it does to Blackwater Park, and hearing this evolution of their sound has been absolutely fascinating over the course of the album's 61-minute long runtime. But this isn't just a mere novelty confined to a couple of songs. The synth runs like a pulsing heartbeat throughout the entire record, snaking its way into the very core of the music's identity. Now, that isn't to say that they've completely abandoned the music that made us fall in love with them, though. There's still some absolutely monstrous guitar work, brutal vocals, and building-toppling drum fills that we've come to know and love. But it is all undercut by this glorious air of technological cynicism, shall we say. The vocals have had quite the switch up too, with a much greater emphasis on the cleans this time around, and in doing so, we're treated to some of the most infectious and memorable melodies that the band has ever put out. The aforementioned Black Murmur and Frostflower have lines that have stayed with me for months now and bring chills up and down my arms as their part in the song cues up. And really, that's what I've come to appreciate and associate with this album. It's an experience that feels made up of, oh dang, that part's coming up soon. And familiarity with the record over time has constructed this magnificent edifice of these incredible sounds. The city may very well be sleeping, but its citizens are very much alive and awake. The chilling outro of No Dreams Beyond Empty Horizons, the brutality of Like a Geyser Ever Erupting, the classical motifs of Emmett, the atmospherics of Silverfields, or the sheer epic scale of the title track. Every song on this album has something unique and exciting to say, and it makes for an experience that is full of personality. I'm a particularly big fan of the ending title track as it reminds me of the scale of Between the Buried and Me's White Walls and the climactic finality of Dream Theater's Finally Free, especially with Carl Westerlund's incredibly John Petrucci-esque solos towards the climax of the song. It absolutely brings back that familiar scenes from a memory vibe in both tonality and execution. In truth, there's not a single moment of this record that I don't adore, not a single shred of anything that doesn't land with maximum impact. Now, admittedly, I had high hopes and expectations going into this album, but in not simply resting on their laurels and making a straightforward sequel to Woe, they've taken the risks that a progressive metal band should be doing, and they are forging into new and exciting territory for themselves and embracing the risks that inherently come with that. In truth, I honestly would have been quite happy for a natural and familiar continuation of the sound that came before this. It is, after all, what I fell in love with the band for. But I'd have also been secretly wondering what an Abstract Illusion would have been capable of if they'd embraced change and pushed themselves to move forward creatively and artistically. Fortunately for all of us, we don't have to wonder what this would have sounded like because The Sleeping City is this album. This is the band exploring new ideas and sounds. Okay, so maybe if you're a die-hard fan of everything they've done up until this point, then this might catch you a little off guard on a first listen. The former half of Frostflower is basically an atmospheric electronica ballad. The interstitial track of Silverfields feels like driving a convertible at nighttime across neon-tinged 1980s beachfront landscapes. This album is risky, it's different, and it is progressive, but it never loses sight of who they are and what made Woe such an important album in their evolution as a band. And Abstract Illusion are 3 for 3 now, firmly establishing themselves as one of the most creative, consistent, and interesting bands in the entire world, crafting these massive, expansive sonic worlds that we are truly privileged to be able to experience with them. As I mentioned earlier, I've been lucky enough to have access to this record for about 2.5 months now, and every time I fire this one up, it thrills me. The opening synths of Black Murmur set the scene for the album perfectly. Everything runs from there at this non-stop flow, moving and shifting between moods and styles without ever feeling bogged down or abrupt. The intelligence that the songs are being put together with on this one feels humbling to witness, even after listening to this more than 20 times on the run-up to this review. I feel like these songs and this record in general are really lived in. There's this sensation of putting on a comfortable pair of shoes, settling under the covers after a long and tiring day, having a home-cooked meal whilst the rain pours down outside. It's a record that I feel understands me musically, reflecting everything I need and want right now. It has a kind of fluency and intimacy to its sounds that almost nothing else that's come out this year has matched. Honestly, there really is almost no competition. The Sleeping City is one of the best albums of 2025, easily the best progressive death metal album of the year, and potentially the band's latest and greatest masterpiece in a discography that just seems to be constantly being made up of them. So, what else can I possibly say about an Abstract Illusions' The Sleeping City? It's funny, I look back at my 2022 review of Woe, and as proud as I was of it at that time, I feel my personal style and approach to creating these reviews has changed a lot in the interim. I'm more verbose, more bombastic, more creative with my linguistic flourishes, yet when I watch it back again, it still feels like me. Only it's me from a little while ago. And it's kind of the same vibe when I listen to Woe after listening to The Sleeping City. I still adore it. I still put it on a pedestal as one of the greatest albums of the 2020s so far. But be it recency bias or not, I find myself drawn back to The Sleeping City over it time and time again. Now, I don't know if it's just that this album is more reflective of who I am as a person musically right now or not, but this is landing in ways that I could have only dreamed of. The band has matured and grown, flexing every technical muscle that they have, but also engaging in some of the most heartfelt songwriting to date to make for an album that's spectacularly well balanced, no matter how deep into the progressive death metal scene you may or may not be. Now, I pre-ordered this on vinyl quite a long time ago, and it is very satisfying to know that my instincts served me well, so it goes without saying, with the amount of praise I've been lavishing upon this one, that my recommendation is obviously to pick this one up in physical format. The Sleeping City is a landmark album that will be lauded as one of the true greats of the genre for years to come. Woe set the groundwork, but the city built atop these foundations is a truly staggering metropolis that cannot be missed by anyone. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion. The album comes out on Friday, October 17th. There is a listening party, I believe, 2 days prior. So once you've checked this one out, if you loved it, if you hated it, please talk to me about your experiences with the record in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up for the metrics if you like the video. Please do tell your friends about little old me. And please do consider subscribing to the channel if you've been enjoying my content so far. Until next time, guys, though, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.